Hey guys, it's Leia. Today we are going to talk about how to evaluate trig functions. First, it is important to memorize the unit circle. The unit circle is a circle of radius 1, and it tells you the cosine and sine of the labeled angles. I highly suggest that you memorize this before continuing. Next, here are some identities that are good to memorize. You can find these and more at the Symbolab website under the Cheat Sheets tab. These identities will help make evaluating functions easier. Let's see some examples of evaluating trig functions. First example, we want to evaluate the cosine of 1,080 degrees. Well, 1,080 degrees is the same thing as 3 times 360 degrees. By looking at the unit circle, we can see that 360 degrees is the same as 0 degrees. And we can also use this identity for periodicity of cosine. In this case, x is 0 and k is 3. So, this equals cosine of 0 degrees. And we know that that equals 1, which is our answer. Next example, we want to evaluate the sine of 7 pi over 12. We can use this identity for this example, because pi over 3 plus pi over 4 equals 7 pi over 12. Let's plug these values into the identity. Next, we evaluate each trig function. Then we simplify and get that sine over 7 pi over 12 equals the square root of 6 plus the square root of 2 over 4, our answer. Now we will talk about how to solve inverse trig functions. Here's a general example. Let's say we have the arc sine of A, which is the same thing as saying the inverse sine of A. Well, we know that this is equal to some number that we'll call b. So we will set this up as the inverse sine of A equals b. Now we take the sine of each side and get that A equals sine of b. We do this to get rid of the inverse. The goal is to figure out what b is. By setting it up this way, it is easier for us to figure that out. We will see this in an example later. Now let's see one example of this. Here's an example. We want to evaluate the arc cosine of 1/2. We know that this is the same thing as the inverse cosine of 1/2. We set this equal to some number b. Next, we take the cosine of each side, and we get that 1/2 equals cosine of b. Next, we think the cosine of what radian or degree will give us 1/2. You can use the unit circle if you need help. We know that cosine of pi over 3 equals 1/2, so b equals pi over 3, which is our answer. Evaluating trig functions is a useful skill to have. Practice will make you better. So for more help or practice on this topic, visit www.symbolab.com and click on the Practice tab.